right here on Fox Business. But right now, let's bring in former Speaker of the House, the great, the wonderful Kevin McCarthy. Mr. Speaker, good to see you.
Obviously, good to be in Wisconsin again, your home state.
Spent a lot of money here. We appreciate that in the great state of Wisconsin. Listen, news broke a little over an hour ago that J.D. Vance was going to be the running mate of Donald Trump. He did this in a way that we weren't quite sure who he was going to pick. What do you think of J.D. as a vice presidential candidate?
I think J.D.'s a good pick. But, you know, President Trump, he really went through looking at a lot of people because he's putting a team together. This is an essential person in the team, but he's been looking at a lot of different people, and he really didn't make that call until today. He wanted to make sure. But J.D. just being a Marine, his upbringing, the struggles his family had through drugs and others, I mean, I think he's going to really resonate when you look at Wisconsin, when you look at Pennsylvania, when you look at Michigan. And I think it'll be key. He's young, 39, so it's a new generation as well. He wrote an unbelievable book that tapped into the middle class, lower class of America that had been missing out in the Rust Belt across the Midwest. And I think that's really, when you talk about President Trump and what he's doing, bringing all of America together and unite. And let's be honest, whoever President Trump picked wasn't going to change the outcome of this election, but who's a good part of the team to help carry this forward.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because, again, you're a California guy, but I don't think anyone knows the districts across this country better than you do. You spent more time in all these districts. You know them all very well. And I wonder, is a J.D. Vance, a guy who's pulled himself up from his bootstraps, a guy who had nothing, was the poorest of the poor, and has become very successful, does that message, and especially coming from Ohio, do you think that's going to move maybe some of those independent voters, those undecided voters, to move towards Trump and Vance as opposed to Biden? That message
I think so. I think he's going to be able to deliver the message of Trump. I really think Trump is the one, especially what you've watched of this new President Trump, right? And think about what we're looking at. You watch Biden, the weakness, the making America not as strong as we used to be. And then you just had the last 48 hours. Here's a man that came so close to losing his life. He doesn't run away to protect himself. He wants to stay there with the people, and he wants to protect the people. And stands up and says, no, America's going to fight back. I'm going to fight for you. I mean, just sheer leadership. Who are you going to pick? And then who can complement that and be a part of that team to help him fight? J.D. Vance is a good pick.
You know, you mentioned Donald Trump and the assassination attempt. It reminded me of this cowboy spirit.
Yeah.
We're moving west on wagon trains, or the outlaw. I mean, these iconic American images of strength where Trump was there with his fist in the air and the flag behind him. I think that does resonate with all Americans. But I want to move on to this because Biden ran on United in the Country in 2020, but it took his predecessor and 2024 opponent being shot for the words unite to actually come out of his mouth. And it's only now that he's, you know, taking some of his damaging words back. Well, sort of. Watch.
On a call a week ago, you said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him.
But his words are falling on deaf ears. Protesters taking to the streets of Milwaukee rallying against Trump, capitalism, and Israel, which should shock nobody since this is the song Biden's been singing for a very long time now.
Most importantly, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, Trump is a threat to this nation.
So, Kevin, I look at this language, and again, I think it can incite people. Do you think the language is going to change? We're going to go back to ideas. Whose policies are better? Whose ideas are better, as opposed to the demonizing of the other side?
I sure hope so. I hope people all across, not just politicians, you know, elected officials wouldn't use the negative stuff if it didn't work. So as us as voters, we got to sit back and say, you know what, we don't like that. There is a great contrast between the policies of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Do you want a secure border? Do you want affordability, that your money's not taken away from inflation? Do you want to be able to earn your way up instead of someone just give something out? Do you want strong foreign policy, that countries aren't being invaded again? Putin doesn't invade another country. North Korea stops testing missiles. This axis of evil that's been created under Biden. I mean, those are the issues America wants to debate. And I think there's a big enough contrast. You can do that, respect the other side, and show where the differences lie without saying crosshairs. I mean, think about whether you said crosshairs or put you in a bullseye. Well, that's exactly what that shooter was doing. We don't need any of that.
And, crosshairs and bullseye by themselves, I'd be like, okay, I get the style of language, but coupled with he's a threat to democracy
Yes.
and is a threat to your freedom, and he's Hitler, that's what I think takes it over the edge.
It really does. And, we've got enough people out there that just take that the wrong way.
Yeah.
I mean, and we don't need that anybody. And, you and I have been there. We've watched Gabby Gifford, Steve Scalise. We watched Paul Pelosi. I've got an individual that's up for trial right now that went to kill my son, right? This is a serious business we're in. We don't need any more rhetoric. Let's pull it back. And it's really the responsibility of all Americans. And what I'm watching the president do, he's trying to reset his own campaign. The one thing that has happened for him since this shooting is no one's talking about Democrats removing him from the ballot now.
That's right.
So, and he's pulled the ads off, wants to reset it. Okay, well, let's reset it and talk about issues.
And Donald Trump just invited Nikki Haley to speak here at the convention. Mr. Speaker, always great to see you. Thanks for being with me.
I thank you. You have a great show. I never miss it. It is the bottom line where I want to be each and every day.
Listen, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.